sure it's going live. And we're live. Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Nugent, and you're watching us live here we have a special guest today, Yorba Linda City Councilwoman, Deputy Attorney General, and Congressional Candidate for the 45th District, Peggy Huang. Also joining us is businessman, entrepreneur, Dmitry Chebetarov.
Hello, everyone.
Everybody,
Hello.
Put the camera on you, not me. So, Peggy, this is the second time we've had you done this, but for anyone joining us for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for people that may not know you?
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Peggy Huang. I'm currently a sitting city council member in the city of Yorba Linda. I'm also a deputy attorney general in the criminal appeals written trial section for the attorney general's office. I specialize in criminal law, obviously, and it's my job and the mission of our office to secure the conviction and ensure that the sentence is fully executed. I'm right now a candidate for Congressional District 45, which includes Anaheim Hills, Tustin, Villa Park, Orange, Irvine, Mission Viejo, Lake Forest, Laguna Hills, Laguna Woods, Rancho Santa Margarita, and Coto de Caza. And I'm also the first vice chair of the Republican Party of Orange County.
Do you have a website anyone can see?
Yes, my website is peggy4congress.com, and that is the number 4. I mean, the letter 4, F-O-R.
You haven't bought the 4 yet, the 4 Congress one?
No. I have, yeah.
Okay. Don't mind me. I'm just
F-O-R.
playing with a bunch of buttons. It'll be about 15 minutes before we start getting people live. I already saw a couple of questions come across my screens. But this is Peggy's website. You can see where the donate button is, the bright red button. Or if you want to volunteer to help Peggy out in her campaign, just go ahead and check that out. I would do a screen share, but for some reason it's not working today. So how do you spell that again?
Peggy4congress.com, PEGGYFORCONGRESS.com.
There you guys go, right there. You guys can see it on the screen. Awesome.
Got us jumping there.
Sorry about that. So what'd you do for last Halloween? Did you dress up, take your kids out?
Well, I did take my kids out. I took them out a little bit early, so that was kind of not a fruitful Halloween for them in terms of candies. But actually, my husband and I decided to visit someone at their home because he had just suffered a stroke and was released from the hospital. My husband and I wanted to go and check up on him because he didn't have family close by. So we went to his home, discovered that he was actually facing some transportation issues in order to get from his apartment to his rehabilitation center, and as well as a medical appointment. So we thought it was going to be a 30-minute visit. It turned out to be a 3.5-hour visit, trying to find rides for him, coordinating with OCTA, which has this great program. It's the Access program. It's to help people who could not physically get to their appointments, and it's at a low cost. So we had to help him. He couldn't speak, so we know he cannot, just hop on a bus by himself. There would be no way he can tell anybody where he was going. So that was my Halloween night, just doing my constituent services.
Did you dress up in a costume?
No, I did not dress up because I couldn't visit a patient in a costume.
You can't visit a patient dressed up as...
Okay.
I don't know. My husband was dressed up as a physician, but I couldn't dress up. Well, you know what? I was there as a public servant, so I was there representing the city and all of that, government should do for their constituents, which is serve them at that time of need. Otherwise he wouldn't be able to get anywhere since he couldn't speak.
Okay.
And can't drive.
Well, I just want to make it a lighter. I want to talk about costumes, and I kind of keep it professional. So if you wore something at work, is that okay to talk about? Like Batman? I'm just,
Well, I think if you visit a patient
that might be
dressed up as like, I don't know, Count Dracula or like the Grim Reaper or something.
Yeah,
they scare people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm pretty neutral on the whole Batman thing, but I just, some people are saying don't talk about it, but is it fair to say if you go to Congress dressed up in a costume that people might talk about that for a while?
Well, there are certain dress code and decor. You are in the people's house. You're representing the people. There's certain.
It's kind of funny.
It was funny.
kind of
You know
funny.
what? I think if you're having if it's in the office, right? Office party, something like that, lively. I think it's great, but
Yeah.
anything outside.
Going into actual, the house, maybe that's taking it a little too far. I don't know.
I just think it's funny.
It's hilarious.
It was
it's
funny.
absolutely
It was funny.
hilarious.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey Barkey says, hi, Mark and Peggy. How are you doing? Some people are saying hi. Some people are joining us. So please share the broadcast. And we're supposed to have all the questions.
Thanks, Jeff.
With our new software, our new setup, we're supposed to have all the questions come to us shortly.
Okay.
So
Hi,
I just
Jeff.
thought it was kind of funny that, she wore a costume,
I think it's hilarious too.
And I don't think any difference at all from her. Although she was nice to me this morning when she said hi at the Veterans Day ceremony.
Good.
So that was awesome.
Good. Glad she showed up.
Yeah.
Should we tell people to share this?
Yeah, share it.
Yes.
Share it with your friends.
That's what I've been doing. And hopefully,
Please share.
Please share.
and
More people can see.
my software is supposed to pull all the comments, and we're streaming on multiple platforms, and so we'll see. Tag people in it, and they will share it.
Oh yeah. Hey, so do you have any Thanksgiving plans? What are you guys doing for Thanksgiving?
This year, the family will gather at my mother-in-law's house, and I think there's some pressure on my husband to, roast the turkey again. He's really good at it, but he hates doing it because it's, a big ordeal for him. 3 days, but he makes the best turkey. So
Nice.
that's it. And you know what? It's camping for me. So I will take Thursday to be thankful, and I'm back at it on Friday. That's the plan.
Are you still working at the Attorney General's office?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have a couple. I have an oral argument coming up, representing the people.
Okay. So I got. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I've got a bunch of questions.
I know.
14
I mean,
pages.
this is a huge packet. I feel like let's get down to it.
Well, usually by now we're swamped with questions, but maybe
I'm trying to figure.
it's Veterans Day. People should be at home, finishing up the barbecues, getting online. Usually after 6 p.m. is a good time.
Well, you know what? Remember what happened last time? It took about half an hour, and all of a sudden the screen
Right.
blew up.
Yeah. And we started getting people
Okay.
jumping in.
So, okay, I can just start hitting you with questions.
Okay, yeah.
From what I heard, big Democrat spending. Good on you. Big Democrat spending and suburban moms heavily influenced the last campaign. And to an extent, I heard, and again, this is what I heard. I don't know for a fact. Correct me if I'm wrong. In UCI, what's your plan to win those voters over?
Talking about the issues that matters to them, and that's what campaigning is all about, is talking about issues and being substantive, not, being general, because people are used to hearing the same rhetoric repeated over and over again. So I talk to people. I don't mind the tough questions because, and I'm pretty honest, if I'm stumped, I'm stumped. And I said, 2-3 brains are better than one trying to solve the problem. I just want to solve the problem. Everyone's opinion matters to me, and their suggestions are. What I do not like is absolutes, right?
Okay.
It's my way or the highway type of thing. No, you know what? Let's find the middle ground. That's the only way we can solve problems. Everyone's opinions, their proposals are all good. The question is, how do we come together for one solution and not beyond the absolutes?
So,
And that's how I'm winning them over. I mean, we've been talking about solutions, issues, and a lot of great suggestions from a lot of the suburban moms and students. And I cannot say suburban moms because I have suburban dads too.
Okay, we
Okay,
say
so
suburban.
suburban
Folks.
folks and urban. So great suggestions. I love them all. We had great discussions. And again, I'm all about bringing everybody together, consensus building.
Okay, we have a question
Okay.
from Catherine and Elizabeth. And this actually ties into the other questions towards at the end. Maybe we'll jump around a little bit.
Okay.
And Catherine and Elizabeth, I'll put the camera on me. Catherine and Elizabeth says, how will you help local teachers in education?
I think right now, when I see education, it feels top heavy. Like we have a lot of administrators, but not a whole lot of teachers. I worked hard in the 90s to reduce classroom size. It bothers me a lot that it has grown to the size that it has grown. And teachers can't teach. They're overwhelmed. So I want, the local teachers to have the tools that they need. We spent $11,000 on students. That's how much the state spends. But yet it's not going into teachers' classrooms. Teachers should not be paying for supplies, right? Out of their own salary. I mean, that we have some really dedicated teachers and they're doing that. That's not their job. If we're spending $11,000 and the teachers are using their money to buy supplies, there's something wrong with the system. So I like to see a reduction in the bureaucracy and more for our teachers.
Awesome.
Wait, can I delve a little deeper into that?
Yeah.
So I guess there are two problems in the education system. There we go. Let me get a little closer here. So there's K through 12, and then there's university, right? And I think California, we're the worst out of all of the states in terms of our education system. Like we rank last.
Bottom 5.
Yeah, definitely bottom 5.
Bottom 5.
It's bad.
Very bad. And, we have, I don't know, most people know this, Proposition 98 that was passed in 1990, I believe. 40% of the general fund must go to K through 12. Okay, so that's guaranteed. And so if you look at
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. So what's going on?
Yeah, why are we doing so poorly?
We're doing so poorly. And, the other thing about education that we need to focus, I want to focus back on, and one of the things is I want to bring back vocational training back into the schools. Not everyone's meant to go to 4-year university. There is nothing wrong with having a special skill. Wait, you know what? When my electricity is not working, I want an electrician.
Yeah.
Right? And if we have all the college kids and no one to fix the wires in my house, I'm not going to have power. And I think what is wrong during the Obama administration, the push for 4-year university, is telling kids, if you don't have a degree in something, whatever it is, you're not worth anything. That's not true. Skills. Some people are super smart at putting things together, but, why do you need to waste time in 4-year college if you're good at putting things together, fixing things?
I don't have a degree.
There you go. See, and you're
fine.
one of the most successful people I know. So why do we need to do that, right?
Oh, Catherine's saying that California is not ranked last anymore.
That's her.
Not ranked.
awesome.
Put her comment
But
up
we
there.
still need to do more for our teachers.
Yeah.
It's all about teachers. I'm not. I'm sure some administrators out there doesn't like me, but I'm about the teachers.
So actually, I didn't realize our pages were double-sided, so I skipped a bunch of questions.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, I didn't realize it. I had a bunch of get to know you questions, tell us about more yourself. Just regular questions. Can you tell us a little more about yourself and your hobbies? What do you like doing in your free time? And general
Well, right
conversation
now I
starters
don't
we
have
usually
any free time.
So campaigning in your free time.
I'm campaigning in my free time, so I don't have much of that. Whatever is free time right now, but I enjoy meeting people. I think if there is a hobby, that is, I love solving problems. So I love talking to people, tinkering with things, but most importantly, I love to learn. And so I love talking to people because I learn so much from different walks of life. Today we had a World War II veteran speak about his experience of being on USS Missouri. You know, what he had to do to get it ready for the signing of the ceasefire between Japan and the U.S. So I thought the story was just super awesome. Those human stories. So.
I've actually been on the deck of the USS Missouri where they surrendered.
Yeah.
It's pretty
neat. It's so neat. And he was great. He was talking about how he had to, they had to repaint the deck to get things ready.
And they didn't have a table.
And they didn't have a table because the table from the somebody else was too small. I think one of the carriers from Russia was too small or something like that. So they used some missile table. It was it was just neat.
Russian tables just aren't as good as American missile tables.
Yes.
So I don't know if you want to jump into policy questions or more. Here's one. People are going to ask you, so let's ask you, why do you want to be in Congress?
Again, talking about things that affect people's lives. Everywhere I went has always been, why isn't Congress dealing with issues that affect me? I'm tired of this political divisiveness. When are you going to propose solutions to these issues? And so that's what been driving me. It's this passion of wanting to solve problems, not in it for the ego. I don't have to do this. I'm happy where I am, but I wanted to have a secure future for, and not just a secure future, but secure present and future for everyone. I mean, if you think about the fact that for Californians, a third of your income goes to taxes, 20% goes to mortgage. If you follow that type of ratio, wow, 50% is left for everything else. People are struggling. So we need to figure out where can we help people. And I want to address those issues. And right now, nobody's talking about it because I think a lot of elected and are not looking at the data. Right. Okay. You see economic growth, but you're not talking about the kitchen table issue. And that if you look at this data, half of that salary they're bringing in is not, they can't use it to pay down bills or anything. We need to address those issues.
Yeah, well, credit card debt, student loan debt, debt is at an all-time high. So,
and savings is low. Right. And I remember a few months ago when I was listening to Squawk Box on CNBC, they were blaming it on low interest rate. And that's why people are not putting money away. You know what? It's more of they don't have any money to put away.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are, the working poor. Right.
So
it's very sad. Even here in like San Francisco, what's the medium income in San Francisco? It's like 6 figures, and people are still
they're suffering.
Yeah, suffering.
Yeah.
They can't save.
I think I mentioned it last time when we were here. Okay. Of a friend, son who graduated this past May from Berkeley. A great job at one of those high-tech firms with a 6-digit, and wanted a 1-bedroom apartment because he said, look, throughout college, I had to share with 3 other guys. I just for once want a 1-bedroom apartment, and it was $6,000. So he had to call home and say, Mom and Dad, can you help me pay for an apartment?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Son, you're making 6 digits. You shouldn't be calling me to help you out with this apartment.
Yeah, to rent an apartment.
To rent.
That's not even buying or building any equity for the future.
No, nothing. And then, like I said, when half of your income is gone, you're talking about rent or mortgage. And then if you have student loans and taxes, you don't have much room left. There's nothing. $5 gas in the Bay Area and down here. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So one of my cameras froze on me. We still got 2 more though, so that's good.
Oh, good.
So that one froze. So we've got this one and that one still.
It's a good thing he's prepared. He's got multiple cameras here, backups.
Got all those cameras. It's just a tough day.
Screw it, Amazon renewed.
Yeah.
Save $150 on the camera, and it's move on. Since we last talked on the campaign, I heard you visited D.C.
Yes. Went out there, had an event with Senator Cassidy.
Where's the pictures?
Oh, very nice.
We had some pictures to show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they're not working.
Yes.
Where were they?
What you're looking at right now is the proposed Veterans Cemetery site.
Oh, there you go.
No, this one is with Supervisor Antonovich and a Dr. Chang from Cedars-Sinai. Because I love talking about healthcare reform and hanging out with them.
Awesome. This one, hold on.
More.
Okay,
There it
there
is,
you go.
me and Senator Cassidy. We're continuing to work on healthcare reform because I want to hit the ground running the day I get elected and sworn in January of 2021. We're going to have a proposal. We're not going to sit around, but it's going to be a proposal to really address healthcare. We have several things we need to deal with: patient safety, the fact that we don't have any antibiotics or antiviral research in the pipeline. Takes 20 years from research to market. Got to talk about those issues, and we're not.
Are you talking about healthcare?
Healthcare. It's
So-
all about healthcare.
Here's the thing that pisses me off about the healthcare talk. Why is it that when we're talking about health insurance, people are saying we need healthcare reform when that's clearly health insurance reform? Nobody's talking about actual healthcare reform.
Thank you. Yay.
And
That's exactly
really
what it
frustrates
is.
me.
Well, you know why? Because people are, it's the cost. We provide excellent care, right? But when there's multiple layers now, if you want to talk about access to care, well, our problem is everything now has to be pre-authorized, right? And the authorization, if you have, okay, I'll use myself as an example. As a cancer survivor, I'm already diagnosed with cancer. Why do I need to get pre-authorized for all these procedures? That's meant to save my life, right?
How long does that take to get pre-authorized?
Okay, so for example, I was diagnosed on the day after Valentine's Day, so it's not that hard to forget, right? And between that and my surgery was 4 months. And finally, I didn't do one of the last tests because they denied it, and I said, forget it. You know what?
Isn't that supposed to be the downside to social medicine? That it's going to take a long time and it's going to, long lines and wait times. Like, we don't even have social medicine and we already have these problems. What the hell?
Right. And that's because we're not talking about, because Obamacare wasn't really about affordability, right? Because that's just a misnomer there. Is that the only people at the table were the insurance companies.
Didn't make it more affordable for
and
me.
They did not make it affordable, right? The cost increased, not decreased. We never had really, honestly, we did not have accessibility issue because, if your watch touches the sidewalk of a hospital, they have to take you in. Nobody asks you about insurance. They take you in. They start treating you.
Yeah.
Okay. Nowhere else in this world this happened. And I can tell you that because I got sick overseas. And they wanted to know if I was going to pay cash or credit card or what before I was allowed to be seen. And that never happens here in America. So we don't have an accessibility problem. We have an affordability problem. Yeah. We also have a breakdown in doctor-patient relationship because it's no longer being dictated by the doctor and the patient in making those healthcare decisions.
Yeah.
It's an insurance company.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about healthcare reform, it's really, comprehensive about delivery of services. How are we going to deliver the services? So I've been focusing on what will work between doctors, nurses. We have, nurse practitioners in some states have full scope of practice. So how do we get those primary care providers to provide the services, especially on the preventative side, in order to reduce
so if cost. The problem is the insurance companies, how do we solve that problem? How do we solve the problem? Because insurance companies are always going to be looking out for their bottom line. That's what insurance companies do.
And so we need first place to go to is price transparency, because they're trying to make sure that nobody knows about their prices. And, I give this example of when I had to get an MRI. All right. I went to an in-network MRI place, $1,100. All right. The imaging place down the street from across the street from my husband's office was, when I spoke to them, it was like $700 something, $800. Wow. In-network is supposed to save you money. It ended up costing more money.
Yeah.
Right? So.
What's all this? Why in-network and out-of-network? I just found out that your husband, who's a doctor, I'm not in his network. And I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Would have loved to see James.
Thank you. No, because the idea behind that was so we can negotiate good pricing. But if you don't have transparency, it doesn't matter. You as the insurance company literally get to dictate how much you want to pay and charge. So we need to bring that back. Health savings account is another thing. We should allow people to use the health savings account in the best way possible, right? I mean, to limit what they can do, that's ridiculous.
Can you explain the idea of a health savings account? Because I've had a lot of conversations with people. Mark, I'm totally hijacking this.
That's okay.
No, because I'm interested in all this stuff.
Yeah,
I've had lots of conversations where people don't even know what a health savings account is. They just assume that it's, me saving money for my health in the future. But when you can't save money already, how are you going to save for your health in the future?
So health savings account has different forms. There's the employer one, okay? So employer one, under Obamacare, they reduce the amount you can set aside, and you must use it in that plan year. So, so it's kind of like, okay, that's not going to work.
We actually have a question.
Okay.
Charles, not going to try to pronounce the last name, says, here's a solution. Teach kids in school financial education and replace sex education.
I think it's a very good suggestion. There's a program right now. It's called Transitional Living Program, and it's being offered to foster children. That's teaching them financial planning. And I think it's a good idea to have that in high school. I actually would prefer doing it in middle school and bringing in people from the private industry. Bring in CEO, financial planners come in. I know a lot of them do a lot of, community service. So why not partner with financial advisors who's going to teach these kids how to do the simple thing like balancing a checkbook, how to set aside money, how to spend wisely. And, I learned this from someone whose father retired when he was 50. And she said when she was growing up, her parents did not stress savings. Her parents stressed spending wisely. She said it's easy to just say, stick it in the bank and I'm saving. But spending is another issue. And people have a hard time with spending, especially when, you've got social media influencer telling you this is a great thing to have, whatever. So
Amazon makes it so easy to buy things.
And Amazon makes things. How much of this is from Amazon?
Most of it's from Amazon, especially the camera, this camera that it froze on me and got me embarrassed. But
thanks, Jeff Bezos.
Well, it's like, whoa, save $150 on the renewed one. I was like, okay. Yeah. So because before we had just the one.
Deal. That's spending wisely.
Not when it crashes in the middle of a live stream.
Yeah, but can't you just return it?
Yeah, I can.
Exactly.
It's ended January.
Yeah.
But then we have more interviews lined up. But so anyway, today's Veterans Day. So what did you do for Veterans Day?
Well, my Veterans Day actually started early on Saturday. I went to use Supervisor Wagner's flag. Now it is retirement. That's it. Kind of escaped me there. Flag retirement ceremony, and got a chance to see the proposed Orange County Veterans Cemetery at the proposed site in Anaheim Hills. And I just want to make this very clear. I am not, picking one side or another. It was just kind of neat to go see a different site. Either way, when I'm elected, whichever site is picked by the people, the veterans, I am going to work hard to ensure there's federal dollars because it takes a lot for it. So that's what I do.
Your screen, someone said hello.
Hello.
From YouTube.
All right. Hello from YouTube.
And we're not getting all the comments, so we just have to work with the tech today.
I feel like my eyes are going sideways because there's this and there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll work something out eventually. We get the studio.
Yeah.
Once we get that internet up and running, I think everything will be rock solid, so we can have the cameras looking straight in your face.
Great,
I went right there.
And then the other thing I did today was so in the city of Yorba Linda, we have it's the only Veterans Memorial Park that has a brick for each service person who died in Orange County. So and then each name is called out. And a bell rang and a rose set aside for them. And if the Gold family is present, then they give the rose to the family. So it's a great event because people from all over Orange County come and participate because their loved one might be one of the names on the bricks. So it's a pretty cool thing. It's the only thing in Orange County.
All right. We got some other people just joined us. If you're just joining us, we're with Peggy Huang, Yorba Linda City Council member.
Hello.
And she's running for 45th Congressional District in Congress. And really quickly, if someone's joining, how do they make a donation to your campaign or volunteer?
Okay, please go to peggyforcongress.com, and there is a donate button.
There.
You know what? Every penny, every dollar counts in helping me get the message out and, making our campaign known to people. So please volunteer, please donate. We need your help. We are reaching people through Mark's Facebook Live.
So are you watching your donations right now in case anyone donates right now?
I am not watching my donation right now.
Is there going to be because last time we did this for somebody and they got like $1,700 of donations during the stream.
Come on,
so
everybody
if you're watching this, let's try to raise $100, $500, $1,000 during the live stream.
Okay. Mark here is setting up the challenge. He raised $1,700 last time, so let's double that. All right.
Okay, cool. I got a bunch. This one's a long-winded question.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you so much for coming live. Some politicians are really afraid of doing live streams. Can you speculate as why some people would be afraid of this? These town halls, these question and answer. It's like is a control freak issue or something that people would be afraid? Because I've had so many people agree to do this.
I don't know. I love doing this with you. It's fun. And I like the questions. I'm not afraid of questions because I'm not afraid of being stomped and admit to you, I don't know. But what I do know is if we have a dialogue and we're discussing, we will come up with something, and I'm very transparent in my thought. I think aloud. I'm just telling you.
Would you do a debate?
I would do a debate.
Still my next question.
I would do a debate. I would do a town hall, anything, because, what I am stressing again is we are at a point where we have so many problems and issues here in our district. And we can't kick the can down the road because there's no more road to kick the can. So three brains together, having a discussion, having a debate is how we're going to get to the solution. So I'm transparent. I'm available. For me, it's all about dialogue and coming up with a solution.
So let's fast forward to September next year. You're the candidate. Would you do? You probably see us, but would you do a live stream debate with Katie?
Sure.
Awesome. Also, is it fair to say that you're not afraid to do this because you're totally transparent and easy to get a hold of?
Yes.
What's the easiest way to get a hold of you?
Email, Facebook message. That's how you got a hold of me the first time, right?
Actually, you interviewed me years ago for something.
Oh,
that's right.
That's right.
I was running for a school board, and then you interviewed me for something, and then you gave it to me. So yeah, and then I've seen you over the years, and
yeah, I forgot about that interview. Did you do okay? Was I okay?
I got it. I got
well,
it.
see there. See, yeah.
Okay.
Winner.
Winner.
And then we do have a question from the audience. Let me put it up there so people
Okay.
can see it. Is it up there? Hold on. I should be
Excuse
able
me.
to put it up on the screen.
Okay.
There you go. It's a big one.
Oh, whoa.
So I
Hey,
can
that's
put that
great.
up.
I love it. Okay. But I can't see the end of that.
Okay, let me, so you can read the question.
Okay.
Want me to read it, or you want to?
I'll read a homeless situation. We have programs to help combat homelessness, but many people on the street refuse help because many are mentally ill, don't even realize they need help. That's very true. Laws mostly don't allow police to remove people off the streets. That is right. It's actually a Ninth Circuit anti-camping case where the Ninth Circuit would not allow the government to do that. The most humane thing we can do is force them off the street. How do we get people to get the help they need from the existing program? Great question. And honestly, I think it's the one that's been stumping all the policymakers, all the elected officials, all the social workers. And so many of my friends who are social workers, that's where we're scratching our head. You know, if you remember a few years ago, we put an extra 1% tax on those who have make over $1 million. That's generating a whole lot of money. So there is for mentally ill services, mental health services. So this shouldn't be happening. So there is a breakdown in our system. I think some of the laws that we have to deal with is really, and this makes a lot of people uncomfortable, it's our HIPAA law. The federal HIPAA law that protects patient privacy is also handcuffing a lot of people, health providers and family members from being able to get people to get the care they need, to those with mental illness. That's one. The number two is the Welfare Institution Code 5150. The involuntary hold process is very difficult. I have tried in the past to get my clients beyond the 72-hour hold, and it's quite a burden to have to prove that. So sometimes those laws need to be revisited and have the courage to change it. I'm willing to work with anyone and everyone, the Mental Health Alliance, I'm willing to work with them to really come up with something comprehensive in the HIPAA and the 5150 laws in order to make sure that these people can have access to services and we can get them off the streets.
So about the homeless situation. So I recently heard our district attorney, Todd Spitzer, speak about this. And one of the things that he was talking about is, you know, how, and it really resonated. How can we help people on the streets by getting them into housing if they're addicted to drugs? So if you've ever known a drug addict, you know, their focus isn't on getting their life together or, you know, getting into a stable situation with housing. Their focus is getting more drugs.
Oh, it's all about the next high. That's what their life is about, the next high and maintaining that high.
I always considered homeless into 4 categories: mental illness, substance abuse, down in their luck, and then the 4th category, which is the hardest to deal with, is refuses help.
Yeah.
In the first 3, you can get the mental health, substance abuse, counseling, whatever. They're down their luck, short-term, divorce, whatever, lose a job. Then others that refuse help. So I don't know. I suspect you need a bunch of judges, lawyers, social workers, doctors to deal with all that.
Yeah, and we're handcuffed by some of these laws. You know, like I said, the 5150 hold, the burden sometimes to go beyond the 72 hours that lawyers have to face or social workers have to face in court to convince the judge to allow for the involuntary. You know, I get it. Patient right, individual right, it's very important. But when someone is mentally ill and telling them they have that individual right to refuse services, I think that there's something wrong there. They don't even know what's right for themselves. So why are we allowing them to refuse services?
Well, that's a fine line, right? Because we used to have the other problem of mental institutions where, you know, I could say, hey, Mark's crazy, and it's, he could be saying he's not, but then he gets put into a mental institution, and there are all kinds of issues there. So how do we find that happy middle ground? Like, what is that happy middle ground?
I think it's great, comment, because I think that's where in talking to healthcare provider and social workers, that's their struggle, and patient rights advocates. But when a patient is mentally ill, we have to have the ability to talk to family members. Right now, HIPAA prevents the healthcare provider from talking to a family member. So if you can't talk to, if Mark's wife, comes into the office and like, Mark is not doing well, the doctor can't talk to the wife.
Yep.
So it's all Mark saying, I'm good. Look, I'm taking my pills. See, and you don't know what he did. He might have flushed it down the toilet. But look, I'm taking my pills, and so I'm fine. I'm not crazy. And Mark's wife is saying, yes, he is, and not crazy, but Mark is not doing well.
It sounds
so we need to do
sounds like a case by case basis, really.
It is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and you got a comment right there. I put it on the screen for you from Susan. You've met her.
Yes. Thank you.
I just thought I'd put that on there and recognize Susan's comment. So feel free to comment, and this is a live Q&A.
And share.
Yeah, and share the broadcast.
Share the broadcast.
Podcast.
The stream.
The stream.
I'm still recovering from my camera crashing. That was embarrassing.
Let it go. Breathe in. Breathe out.
I gotta make fun of myself there for a second. So I got a bunch more. Usually we're like just hammered by the audience with tons of questions. Last one I did, we like hour and a half of questions before we even touched anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
We got plenty
maybe
of policy.
Maybe it's the barbecue thing, They're out there enjoying the barbecue.
Maybe we should move these things to 7 p.m.
Maybe we should go have a barbecue.
We should go.
I mean, now we're starting to get people showing up.
Yeah, maybe it's a 7 o'clock thing. They're still getting home from the barbecue, or they're just starting their barbecue, and now they're eating, and they're like, oh, let's check this out.
This is the first big holiday broadcast I've done.
Oh.
Yeah.
Great. I'm so happy I'm the first one.
Yeah, I should wear my uniform.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I was expecting you to.
Not here, not this one. That would be... I'd get in trouble for that one.
You would?
I think that's against some DOD regulation as well.
Okay. Wow.
As a retiree or a veteran, you're allowed to wear it for like weddings or funerals or official events. This be considered kind of exploiting the uniform.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. I'm going to have to wait for another day to see you in uniform.
I was there today in Irvine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a bunch of pictures, a bunch of people that came up to me.
Right.
And even Anthony Kuo came up and said, man, you still fits. Is it tailored? I was like, thank you. That's all.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been working out.
Actually, I'm Memorial Day, I wore my uniform, and I was puffing out of that thing. And then when I got sworn in for a county commissioner, I was like, oh, puffy. So, nope.
Which commission?
Waste management.
All right.
So,
very important topic, actually.
Yeah, I lost 20 pounds since then, so now everything fit fine.
Nice. Were you working at the landfill? It's just like,
I've been in the landfill once for 20 minutes for a tour, and that's it. But this thing isn't about me. I can do live streams whenever.
I can talk about waste, too.
Actually, I have some questions about that, clean air and water later on.
Yeah.
Okay, I know I mentioned it before. I'm going to keep mentioning it. If somebody wants to volunteer or donate on the campaign, how do they do that?
Please go to peggyforcongress.com. We have a donate button as well as a volunteer button. Please, I need your help, both as volunteers and your financial support. It costs $8 to buy a sign. So, I've got a lot of requests for signs, so need lots of help there. And you know what? Share this broadcast, this live stream. And you know what? Something that we haven't brought up. There is a button up there on my website called Contact.
Right there?
Yes. Send me email. I'll answer your questions.
Okay. That's easy. Okay, that or Facebook's easy way to get hold of you. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Cool. And I want to see if we get any donations during the live stream. So if you guys want to donate, go to peggyforcongress.com and click the red button as you see on your screen. Let's see if we get any donations. And if you're going to donate, please comment that you donated.
Okay. Yes, please do.
All right. Someone donated this MacBook Pro, which costs about $5,000. That's why it's so crispy clean.
So crispy.
Yeah, it's except for that one camera that I bought for myself.
He's having trouble getting over it.
Okay. Okay, so I got another veterans questions. I actually was going to delete all these veterans questions because, but then I was like, wait, it's Veterans Day. We're going to ask some Veterans Day questions. And everyone is patriotic. Everyone pretty much loves veterans in Orange County. So usually I would ask a candidate, especially a congressional candidate, what will they do for veterans? And then is it fair to say the best person to help a veteran is another veteran? I'll let you riff on that for a minute.
I'm trying to find your question on my page. Oh, I should just read that. Oh, yeah. Well, yes, because I always believe you can't solve a problem if you never walked in that person's shoe, right? And if I can't walk in that person's shoe, go find the next best thing, which is someone who had previously walked in those shoes. And so, yeah, definitely veterans face a lot of different challenges, right? One of the things that I've heard is how to translate the skills you had in the military into the civilian life.
Oh, the transition, yeah.
That transition. And, the problem solving structure is the ability to react immediately to a problem is something that, veterans, everybody who served in the military can do. How do we capitalize on that in the private sector? That's a huge thing that I think we need to focus on. Those skills. So yeah, definitely somebody who has worked with a veteran themselves is probably the best thing to address those issues. And medical, reintroduction into civilian life is a big thing as well.
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. So, so actually I'll just head there. So when you get elected to Congress, are you going to hire a veteran day one?
Yeah, I already have someone on my campaign staff who works with veterans.
Awesome. And I just, that goes back to my point. The best person to help a veteran is always another veteran.
Right.
So a 19-year-old staffer is not going to know how to deal with PTSD.
And I'm waiting until being elected. The person, my campaign manager is, has been working with veterans for over 30 years, has a track record with them. So I'm not waiting. I'm already doing.
Yeah, I served with Democrats, 20 years in the Army, both under Democrats and Republicans in the office. Life was harder under the Democrats. We always had to do more with less pay. Republicans will be, always, people might disagree, but this is my point of view. When a Republican was in office, big office, they gave us the tools we needed, and we saw pay raises. And I'd like to add that we don't make that much money. When I first joined, I was making less than $600 a month. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
That's the thing about being a public servant is people you often hear about public servants are paid too much. And no one looked at actually how much public servants are making. Public servants actually do not make as much as everybody think they do. And, this is a primary example. $600 a month to someone who's asked to give up their life. Wow. What are we saying to our military men and women?
Well, that was in 1996.
1996, but how much of a raise? And if you think about it,
I'm not a veteran, but isn't that after all expenses are also taken care of? Just to be fair about it, I don't know. I don't know what they're.
People are cringing. Have you ever been to military barracks?
I haven't.
Yeah, they do give you free food, or they would give you like $250 if you were married, or if you got married, then let you live off post. Otherwise, they live in the dorms, which is. Yeah, World War II type stuff.
It's a bonding experience.
Romance.
Actually, this is why an 18, 19-year-old staffer can handle that. I'm not 18 or 19. I couldn't handle it.
Actually, when we first joined, we had like one big open bay, and it was like 45, 50 guys in one bay when you first joined. And then eventually you go to a dorm, you have a roommate. And it's okay. It gets better. But it's the first year I was making that. But so anyway, okay, put me in my place there. Thanks.
You put me in my place.
No, and okay. You know what? A lot of people look at the benefits, these expenses and benefits, and
I just want to go on the record. No, he's right though.
He is right.
They do
do
cover
not
the
argue with him.
I'm a finance guy. I'm like, whoa. Stop talking spending more money. No, but the vets are the ones who
I was trying to get some like sympathy there, for, like when I got paid nothing in the Army. But
where's your whining?
I just wanted
Where's your whining
Sad
sound?
music.
Okay.
The sound music.
We'll move on. Okay. Want to move on from veterans issues? We can go to policy and stuff. Because everyone seems to be at the barbecue still.
Man, I have so many policy questions.
Well,
and not all of them are softballs either.
Have you ever asked me a softball question?
Probably.
You have?
Probably things that are just general.
Like other than what's my name?
What do you do?
And that's what's good. You know, it's tough questions, right? And the ability to admit I don't have the answer, but how about we work together toward a solution?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what it is.
I'm just.
That's why I'm not afraid of questions.
Mark's been doing such a great job asking all these questions that, like, do you want me to get into the nitty gritty?
It's up to you guys.
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
You know what? I think it may be. Ask me the tough questions. I don't have an answer. I might have some proposals, some thoughts, and then some really smart person out there in the Facebook world said, I got a great idea. And then we can like use it.
All right, here's
There
the
we
tough
go.
question.
All right.
I'm going to break it down right now.
Where's my pen?
Okay. Marijuana.
oh yeah, someone asked that question earlier. Yeah,
How
I was
did
asking
I
you too.
know? How do I know that you would ask me about marijuana? Asked
What's
me?
your view on legalizing it from
Legalize
DeMarcus
it.
Washington on YouTube?
Of course, the YouTube folks all want it to be legalized. All right, so let's start there.
I think
We covered this last time. But we went into the difference in medical and
Well, so
recreational.
I
and
wasn't
whatever.
here last thing. I had to leave.
Okay.
And I asked about it,
Yeah.
but I didn't get a chance to do back and forth. And I want to do some back and forth.
Okay,
'cause
let's
we
do something
disagree
about
on
it. We do. I am not for legalization because there's so many things wrong in the system, right? But you know, I'm not one of those people that said, "Well, once I'm stuck in a corner, I just stick to it."
Of course.
Position because I think there's so many facets to this. Number one, though, and I have to thank my smart husband for this. Really smart. He said, you know, the problem within the space of marijuana is there's never been really good scientific research. And because the federal government said because it's illegal, we're not going to do any type of research in it.
So that's
right?
not necessarily true.
So it's private sectors, right?
Oxford, Mississippi, Ole Miss, the
Ole
university,
Miss.
has been doing research. I forget how long, but it's federally funded research into marijuana for.
So why isn't NIH
decades.
behind it? That's the question. I mean, and
Can we get
everybody
someone
look
from
at
NIH
it.
on the phone?
Everyone is saying NIH is not behind it because the federal laws doesn't allow them to do that type of funding.
Well, it's very,
So-
very specific
Ah.
funding. It's literally only Ole Miss.
See,
They actually grow it too
oh, interesting.
on
And I
campus.
think in order for us to really understand about legalization, and it's kind of like if I want to treat marijuana like any other pharmaceutical item, I would not put it on, out there in the market until I have ways of that evidence-based research
Yeah.
right? And how marijuana is different from your other drugs, like I don't know, let's pick one of the cardiology drugs, right? Whatever it is that it actually alters your mind a little bit. Okay, well then I think that is where law enforcement and companies, especially those, let's say in construction, they're concerned about is there's no way to test what under the influence is, right? So I think
hold on,
those things are the ones that are kind of keeping us from saying full-on legalization. So those are the things we need to solve.
So from a medical perspective,
Let's start with that.
So let's start medical.
Okay.
And when we're talking about testing, and mind you, I don't use marijuana. Yeah.
He's just interested in this.
I have used it.
Okay.
No, I don't. I don't use it. It makes me really lazy, and I have no medical need to use it. Thank God. But if we're talking about testing and we're talking about medical, there should be more research, of course.
Yeah.
However, okay, we have good tests for alcohol, as in if you're driving drunk, you do the breathalyzer, which, by the way, there's been stuff showing that's not as accurate, so you have to do a blood test. But you can say alcohol stays in your system for a limited amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
But opioids stay in your system for what, 3 days? So
Can't, and it can go into your fat cells as well.
let's say you took an Oxycontin, and then whether you drove right then and there or whether you drove the next day, that's still going to be in your system. So even if they do a blood test, how can they know whether you're under the influence? But opioids are right there, even though there's a massive epidemic, but they're completely legal for medical, but marijuana is not. So,
and again, it goes back to, what I was talking about, having good evidence-based research and peer review. So that's what happened with all the opioids, right? And that's what the FDA trials, which is the reason why it takes so long to take drugs from market to hold on a second. Okay. Market from research to market, right? Because
but those
they
drugs
do all
aren't
those.
illegal. So they have the ability to go through the FDA process.
Well, and what I'm trying to say is it's through that trial is all about the research, giving the evidence, right? So FDA trial may not be the right word to say in this circumstance, but you have to do that. That is what's lacking right now. But more importantly, how marijuana is also different from everything else is marijuana is you could test positive for up to 30 days. Okay, number one. Number two, marijuana is also one of those drugs that if you're in the same room, like you're using it and I'm in the room, I can end up having it in my system and then test positive for it. So it's a little bit.
How's that possible?
Yeah. It's the fumes. And no joke.
I don't know if I believe that.
Oh, okay. So I can tell you I learned that because I used to work in juvenile dependency.
You're talking about if I'm smoking it
And I'm
you
in
get
the room.
secondhand smoke.
A secondhand smoke. Mm-hmm. So I learned that because I had to learn it when I was working in juvenile dependency, where a lot of the foster care kids, these kids were removed from their parents because they were using drugs. Yeah. And so I did undergo a lot of narcotics training more than any, normal people would, just because I had to learn it and in order to better advocate for the kids. And so that was one of the most interesting things.
I believe you're breathing in the
You're
smoke
breathing in. And
in
so
smaller quantities.
So we don't have research on, hey, so when it's secondhand into my body, how much am I under the influence, right? Okay. And we don't have anything. I'm not.
Have you ever smoked pot?
No. And if I were to be in the room and smell it,
we're not going to smoke pot here.
Okay, so I will tell you.
This is not Joe Rogan podcast.
I will tell you that I never smoked it, and if you were smoking it right now, I would not know what it is because I never been in the presence of it. Other than looking at it as evidence, I should say. but that's it. I know I lived in a bubble maybe a little bit.
Would you say, and I'm trying to not be like this pro-cannabis thing, but I feel like it's a very interesting issue. I mean, even the YouTube guy, right?
What's his name again? Washington.
Okay, there's the comment right there.
Yeah.
Those are his comments. Hello. What's your view on legalizing it?
Even Mr. Washington said,
and
he wants legalization.
No, he's asking for the view. He didn't say he is for.
He's watching. How you doing?
Tell everyone else what you feel.
No. I mean, the thing is, it's multifaceted. So, and we need to address it. The other thing is merging as becoming a public health issue is, and I came across this when I was serving as a commissioner on the Orange County Family and Children's Commission, is we're seeing a rise in pregnant women using marijuana to deal with nausea, right? Yeah. Well, now we have children born with, underweight, all these issues with a lot of health issues that's associated with smoking and, use of
Is it associated drugs. With I'm not advocating for smoking anything when you're...
you should not
you
be.
Shouldn't smoke anything when you're pregnant.
Yeah, not even using marijuana for nausea, but they are.
For anything. But has there been actual research showing that the marijuana is the cause of that? And here's why I say so.
Mm-hmm.
Because, first of all, anyone who's pregnant shouldn't be smoking anything, period, or drinking anything. They should be eating clean and taking care of their bodies. But in our society, a lot of people eat like complete garbage. Wouldn't eating like complete garbage lead to worse effects than even something like marijuana? Just throwing that out there.
Well,
I'm about to get kicked off of this thing.
No. Well, my other comment was it's a case by case basis.
it can be, and but what we're seeing is that we're starting to see in the American obstetrician and gynecological association, as well as the pediatric community, they're sounding the alarm right now because they have done such a good job of telling women not to smoke cigarettes, tobacco use, cease all tobacco use during pregnancy, and it really helped with the birth rate and birth defect and reduction in birth defect. And now we're seeing a rise in it. And when they went back and asked, they're saying, hey, I was using marijuana to combat my nausea. They told me it was okay. And these physicians are saying, anytime, kind of what you just said, anytime you smoke any type of substance, it's bad. But we don't have enough research. Again, we need to go back. I am for research, right? Yeah. That's where I am. Before we legalize it, let's research it, make sure that we have good evidence-based research on the use of it. How do we test it? What is under the influence? And I think that's what law enforcement is struggling with. If I pull somebody over, how am I supposed to test them for marijuana? For under the influence?
They're driving 25 in a 50 zone.
Eating a bag of chips.
Yeah.
You know, right?
And there's Taco Bell in their car.
And so that's what they're struggling with. That, and now with this new issue, maternal health, it requires a lot of research.
So you're saying you would be in favor of rescheduling the drug to something that can be researched. So right now it's a Schedule 1 narcotic.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So rescheduling it.
Yeah. So I'm totally okay with researching. I'm very much about evidence based.
So question there, and we'll talk about something other than marijuana if you guys want. I'm just.
Go ahead.
I thought you were going to ask me about marijuana tax because that's a lot of cities are going down that road too.
Well, the marijuana tax, it needs to be legal for it to be taxed, right? I guess not. The federal government will want to take our money regardless. No, but question about that. So, okay, let's say you reschedule it. Well, that opens up a whole lot of issues for an already established industry in places like California, in places... in whatever, the 15, 20 states that have some legalization, and then 40-something that have something to do with research and medical already. Mm-hmm. So from a federal perspective, if you reschedule as opposed to deschedule, it actually creates a lot of issues, more so than solving issues and opening up research, because individual states have research already starting to happen. It's just not federally funded.
Well, and we need to do take all that state research and start doing some peer review, right? Shouldn't we? My number one concern about marijuana right now, actually, is more in the public safety world, is that legalization. Right now, banks are not allowed to deal with marijuana shops, right? So it's all cash based, and then I believe California allows it, but banks are not working with it. And
the Safe Banking Act just passed the House,
right?
It's going to the Senate soon.
The concern has always been the money laundering behind it.
Oh, absolutely. The black market.
The black market. It's all the black market again. But you kind of have to help these marijuana shops, because guess what? I've handled many cases of robbery and felony murder. People who were killed during those robberies over the cash. And it's a lot of cash, right?
And there's some bad people in that industry.
Right.
And California is a 90% black market, even still.
Yeah, because guess what? You have all these municipalities that said, "Oh, yay, let's regulate it." There's licensing and there's taxes, a whole bunch of regulations, whatever. And it actually, they thought this legalization will reduce the black market. Instead, it increased it because after all this regulation and fees and taxes and whatever, they have found that, okay, now I have to charge more for the product. So, black market went up. And
well, there's also no enforcement.
And no enforcement. I mean, there's so much issue. And the problem is, we need, all these things should have been taken care of before the legalization. But there was this drive to do the legalization that they go, well, I'll just deal with the problem. What I'm saying as problems and identifying, actually, it was already out there during the time when, the proposition but being debated. But now, we're looking backwards. So there's a lot. I don't have a solution. I know it's a lot of discussion point, but it is, having this discussion shows all the people who are out there who are pro and against legalization this is a very complex issue. It's not just turn on the green light, and let's go. A lot of planning is involved. I think one of the things what we need to do is also establish a system of genetic typing and, making sure that we know which strands and where it came from. Like, kind of like, I don't know, labeling a cow, right? Where the beef came from so that when the problem arises, we know where to go. Yeah. And that is not set up. Colorado has a great system. California apparently is not as good. What we need to do that as well.
Yeah, standardization system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right.
That's all. That's all I have on marijuana.
Oh my gosh, that's it. I thought it was going to be in the next hour.
We could spend a long time talking about it, but that's all I have for now.
No, good. I was tagging people and tell people to show up. I guess Veterans Day people are just maybe they're shaking off their hangovers or they're I don't know. So hey Ed, how are you doing? Ed Laird just joined us. How you doing?
Ed.
Share.
So
live cast.
Oh hey, is that Ben? Is Ben on? Hi Ben.
Ben, which Ben?
Is that or that's your tagging?
Benjamin Yu is watching. He's
Hi,
running for state assembly against Stephen Choi, and he'll probably be on later in the next few weeks or so.
Okay.
But I've got some more questions.
Okay.
Since you do serve on the Yorba Linda City Council, when you're elected to Congress, how will that experience help you? And what other elected positions have you held? Were you also on Central Committee? I'm not sure.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot.
That's a bunch of questions,
Oh,
like 3
have
questions.
A lot. Okay, I was first elected to Yorba Linda City Council in 2014 and was reelected in 2018. Okay. One of the things about serving at the local level is that you're both the policy, the legislative branch and the executive branch. And it gives you that opportunity to get to know all things, issues, because, at the end of the day, politics is local. Issues are local. And so learning from my residents and learning from the constituents who live in the district what is important to them, representing them at the county level has been very helpful. Hey, this is what matters to them every single day. And then trying to solve those problems, having the conversation and solving them and formulating the best policy. So, already I'm making policy as an elected official to address those issues. And most importantly, I think at the local level that has really taught me is budget. The financial.
I agree.
I mean, it's, the first thing I did when I was first elected was I wanted to figure out how can I make the city's finances transparent to everybody, because I was kind of tired of answering emails about, hey, where's this dollar going? Why am I paying for this? So at the end, we found a great system. It's called OpenGov. So Yorba Linda was the first city to put OpenGov. Basically, it's the city's entire finances online. So you want to know where the dollar came in and where did it go? What you're looking at is what we're looking at internally. Awesome. I want to do something like that at the federal level. I said that to a couple of people, and they said, well, we in the federal government, blah, blah, blah. And I said, people tell me that all the time. It doesn't mean it can't be done. A little bit more complex, sure. But why not?
They're like,
wouldn't you want to know?
Don't be watching where we're putting our money.
Yeah, don't we're stealing pots over here and there. So there's that.
I'll throw a hardball one at you, and it's okay if we can come back to it. It wasn't on our list. Do you have any opinions? Because I ran for school board, and I'm probably run again. 1974 IDEA. That's something we wanted to dig into, and the unfunded federal mandates regarding special education. It's way in the weeds.
Oh, that is serious in the weeds.
Okay,
Okay,
we'll
you help me out on the special ed, and I thought I know special ed, but you definitely know special ed.
Yeah, I don't want to think
I
about me, but we just went through like my kids. We had some issues with it and stuff, and I'll tell you off camera. But also there are unfunded federal mandates that are requiring schools to do things, but they're not funded from the federal government. So then the federal government's not keeping their promises for certain percentages they're supposed to pay. And when I ran for school board in 2016, I did the math, and it was like $800 million they owed the IUSD alone. So it's so if you get to Congress, I'll be hitting you up and going, how do we fix that?
We'll start working on something.
So
don't wait until I get elected. We should start working on it now, don't you think?
I think so. I'm trying. I talked to the school board members at a fundraiser the other day, and I said, I like a challenge. I'll get you my money. Like I know how the government works. So I'll figure it out. But again, it's not me. Here's to answer the question. We'll work together to figure it out. Okay.
Yeah,
so
let's figure it out.
My next question is, what got you into politics in the first place?
Oh, I was working with women who were victims of domestic violence and child abuse. And working on it, I started thinking, wow, there's a need for money, better laws. And talking to elected officials, they didn't seem to understand what these women and children really need, the complexity of it. And they don't even know where the funding came from. So as I got more into direct services, I realized that I needed to be their voice because nobody was really talking to them. Even those who claim to be advocates never provided direct services, or I shouldn't say never. A lot of them never didn't have the experience of providing direct services. And so they're out there talking about things in general. And so I wanted to change that. I wanted to advocate for those who didn't have a voice, and I wanted to speak to them about what is happening at the ground zero.
Okay.
And that's where my passion started. It was all for victims of violence.
We had a question come across the screen real quick. That's my...
Thanks for your service, Mark. I don't think that was a question, was
brother.
It? Oh, hi, Steve. You have a great brother.
So
hope you're proud of him.
So thank you for your service as well. He actually served in Vietnam.
Oh, wow. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, it's a whole other story with
That's a whole different world. Okay.
Just look at the age difference.
Age difference. We won't mention that.
It's another story. So did I already ask you what elected positions you had for city council?
No. Yes, I'm on Central Committee for the Republican Party. I was elected and served first as a secretary, and now I serve as a first vice chair for the party.
Awesome. Why do let me ask something along these lines. Why do you think people perceive Republicans as being so bad now here in California?
I'll let her answer first.
I have so many. You know what? I think it's because we didn't do a good job messaging ourselves. All right. So because we didn't do that, we allow other people define who we are. And then we spend our time being on the defensive. But did we make mistakes along the line? Probably we did. Right. And we're not very good at apologizing and moving on from it. There's so many different reasons. I don't even know where to begin. One of the things that we did not do a good job as Republican is explaining how the Republican view on economics and how it really is about bottoms up, not top bottom to bottom, which is what the Democratic view is, government down. We're about empowering people, right? The bottom-up approach, lifting people up in the economics and connecting that with social issues, right? Because when you can address people from the economics, when they have food security, housing security, clothing security, it deals with all those other social issues, right? And you're bringing them up. But if you don't help them in that sense, then it's natural for people to feel victimized, right? So if I'm not doing well, I said it's everybody else's fault. There's nothing wrong with that. That's human nature. So we got to have that bottoms up approach. I don't think the Republicans have done a good job talking about how the good economic growth is, and the bottoms up approach is what's going to lift everybody out of poverty, and improving lives. And also any of these misconceptions about, you can even talk about race issues, you can talk about religion, all that. If you start talking about bottoms up.
What would your answer be to somebody?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put on my Democrat hat and play the devil's advocate here. What would your answer be to somebody who says that Republican policies mainly help the wealthy and create a larger gap between the rich and the poor?
I would disagree with that, because the thing about America, if you go anywhere outside of America, you ask them, why do you want to go to America? It's land of opportunity. They don't care about where you came from, what your education is. As long as you work hard, you have the equal opportunity for success. That's not true in any other country. And you and I know that, especially in a socialist country, the corruption involved, you will have zero opportunity, because you're dependent on government handouts. So there's just no way to do that. So here in America is that it is all about what you can do. Now, do we have disparities in some places? We do. All right. But we need to understand what those disparities are. Some of that disparity is actually downright corruption, right? Mismanagement at the local level. And so because of that, it does influence, impact those people that the government was supposed to serve, creating that gap, right? So, for example, we were talking about education earlier, right? And we want to help people move up. Well, if we're telling them, hey, you're only worth it if you have a 4-year degree. But if your 4-year degree is in, I'm going to pick on some random major, English literature, right? And that's your 4-year degree. What are you going to do with it? It's not a skill you can get a job, right away. Well, what if that same person should have gone and become a radiology technician, right? 1 year in a trade school, learning how to read x-rays, learning how to, move patients, not read x-ray, but take x-rays.
Yeah.
Great paying job, above minimum wage job. A lot of them are making way over $20, great benefits in a hospital. So it takes care of that disparity.
Education may not be the best topic to really accent the differences in policy, because Republicans and Democrats alike have screwed up on education.
Oh, right? Completely agree
Bush,
with you.
Obama, everybody screwed up.
And
I feel like we talked about medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or healthcare reform, and that's something that is very polarizing.
Yes.
You have guys like Bernie that are saying we need socialized medicine, and even local Congress folks that, I don't know, Mark, are we saying people's names?
You can say whoever you want. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, so I saw Harley Ruda. This was maybe several months ago. He's congressman here locally in California, right there, if that map is showing.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how he was in support of some form of socialized medicine. So the divide in talking about health savings accounts or talking about socialized medicine, is very in your face when you're, looking at, like, I can afford to pay ridiculous insurance costs so that my family's insured, but most people can't. And so that becomes this big issue of people are saying, well, the Republicans are saying pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but I'm broke and screw them. I hear it all the time.
I've heard that. No, yeah. I don't think it's a valid statement. Yeah. That means as policymakers, we didn't do a good job solving the problem. And the thing is, it's multifaceted. It's so many layers. And this Medicare for all to snap your finger and make it happen is not going to solve the complexity of it. I mean, in this whole entire space is tort liability, right? I mean, you've got drug makers who has to set aside like a third, more than a third of their income on a drug just for potential lawsuit, right? And then they have to recoup money for, their investments. Yes.
We have a question from the audience. Let's slow
Okay.
today. Stephen All says, I think the Republicans believe in opportunities that are available in our country. The bootstrap approach. The Democrats seem to believe that everyone doesn't achieve a better life for whatever reason should be given whatever would give them a better life.
So that's more of a comment.
More
Yeah, I
of a
guess more of a
statement.
comment, statement.
But
I will
it's
share
it's
that-
in line with what we're.
Yeah, it's in line
Talking
with our
about.
discussion. Yeah,
We'll show you that
absolutely.
Steve, he grew up really poor. And when he was in a tent in Vietnam, he was studying to be a CPA, Economics 101, in a tent through correspondence courses while they were getting bombed.
Wow.
And then he ended up owning his own CPA firm. And even the Secretary of Defense was one of his clients in D.C.
That is so neat. And, if you talk to a lot of immigrants, like who came here and they started with nothing and they moved themselves up and they, opened up business and do well.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, equal opportunities. Here, I think at the end of the day, if we're talking about economic disparities and is perhaps we are not doing a good job helping people access those opportunities. It's not because the opportunities are not there. It is some people do not know how to access that. That can be a point. And this is where I believe in private-public partnership, where we can maybe bring CEOs to communities, right, and help them access those opportunities, sharing their experience of how they got to where they are. Right, because everybody's is given those access. How did you do it? How did you get into financial services? Whatever it is, you can come back and mentor them. Yeah. And so to me, it's more about access. And so now it's teaching them how to access. And I think we can learn from a lot of people. I love to be in the same room with Bill Gates. Kind of learn like how did he tinker with what he tinker. Too bad Steve Jobs is dead because I would love to learn from him. Or Warren Buffett, right? Those people, right? Whatever it is, how do they access those opportunities? Or learn from Dimitri,
Would you say Warren has an all-you-can-eat buffet of knowledge in his head?
So, hi, Holland. How are you doing? She's joined us. Okay, so I got a bunch more questions. We can move along.
Okay.
So if you guys are just joining us, PeggyForCongress.com, you can go ahead and donate and volunteer there. See if we can get some donations for Peggy while we are live streaming. Now let's move on to your job as a state prosecutor, which I find very fascinating. Can you translate your service as a prosecutor and determines a layman like me? Hold on, put on me. A layman like me, because I'm not a lawyer, although I was accepted in law school. I just didn't go.
And that's a great thing about being in America. You can go to law school anytime.
So what have you learned from being a prosecutor? How can you translate that service into now as elected representative, either on Yorba Linda City Council or even for Congress?
Well, one of the things I do at the appellate level, and that's a little bit different, is that I work within the four corners of a transcript. So the conviction is already secured at the trial level. I argue purely on questions of constitutional law, evidence, the applications of these statutes, and to ensure that justice was delivered. So it's sort of like this second pair of eyes. I'm an officer of the court. It's my job to say, hey, if there's error, there's error. We have to do the right thing. Justice has to be fair. We can't win and say, okay, everybody turn the other way because there is error, but let's turn the other way. So as an officer of a court, looking at the evidence, was there enough evidence to secure that conviction? That's very important. So that's what I do all day is I argue constitutional law and to make sure that the sentence is executed.
I was going to say this too before you answered, but you did. That prosecutors hold a special place in my heart because they gave my family justice, and I know that you sacrificed a lot of pay to be a prosecutor. I know you guys can make so much more doing other things, so I thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes.
Appreciate that. So,
I'm glad we delivered justice for you and your family.
Yeah. Here's an easy one. When
Okay.
elected to Congress, what committees do you want to serve on?
I have such a long list. I don't even
Ways
know
and
where to.
Means.
Ways and Mean, definitely, because I would really help our district. Money, transportation is
House
another
Intelligence
one.
Committee?
Energy
Okay.
is another one. Energy and commerce, foreign affairs, I is another one. So,
Awesome.
but transportation and energy and commerce are the two that I really want to deal with. That's where healthcare issues goes to. Transportation is a big deal here in the 45th. We have mobility problems. Just drive on the surface streets of Irvine and you'll know.
Transportation Commissioner just logged in to watch us.
Oh, hello, Transportation Commissioner.
I won't mention any
Hello.
names because one time I said hi to the person, they thought I could see them.
Ooh.
So they know who I'm talking about. But
Yeah. No.
so what are your top 1 priority or 5, top 1, 3, 5, or 10, I don't know, 50 priorities or 1 priority for the 45th Congressional District? Feel free to list more than 1 or 2 if there's one that pop out. Taxes or
So
education or
many.
traffic.
Okay, so we already cover healthcare.
Okay.
Student loan. Last time I spoke a lot about student loans. That's the second one. The third one is immigration. These are very important issues. Just talking to constituents here in the Congressional District 45. Transportation is another one. Housing, which is coupled with homelessness, that's another one. Sustainability. Okay, so when we're talking about sustainability and we're talking about the environment, the energy, having secured energy source, and that is very important as we go through this wildfire season we're in. I feel like we're in a third world country when they're talking about turning off our power because of wildfire. It's insane, and we need to have better forest management. Now, I will say I believe in balance. All right. So we don't go to the extreme and, scorch earth on everything. And, if it's a natural resource, we just harvest it and, and leave it in destruction. No, I'm not that. Nor am I on to the other side of the pendulum, which is let's turn California back to 1850s, right? Which is what the problem with our forest management right now is we want the forest to look like what it looked like back in the 1850s. And now we have a lot of overgrowth, right? And logging industry stopped. And so now we have dead trees in the forest, and that's the problem we face in the wildfire. So there's a lot of things we need to work on. We need to work on clearing water. So there are lots of issues there to work on. But to me, sustainability being this overall thing of environment, energy, and clean water is in that space.
So talking about energy, so what are your thoughts on a sustainable energy for the future?
Okay, so I believe in all options on the table, right? So there are some out there who were arguing that we should shut down nuclear. But if you look at what they have done in Finland, in North Europe, we can really learn from them how we can have safe nuclear energy. I also believe in renewable energy. Harvest everything. Natural gas. Do you know that it costs $30,000 to retrofit your house to convert it from natural gas to electric if this whole ban goes through on natural gas, right?
Wait, there's a ban on natural gas?
Yeah, there's
going through?
discussion. There's a discussion about banning natural gas. Okay, well, this is overreaction. This is swinging things to the other side because natural gas is bad. We had explosion issues, whatever. Well, that's dealing with piping. That's infrastructure. We have to invest in infrastructure. So lack of investment there led to an explosion in San Bruno. We have Aliso Canyon, the whole thing, the gas leak. All those in, right? So now Sacramento is talking about banning. Well, do you know anybody who can do $30,000? I mean, that's a lot on working families. They don't have the ability to do that. That's ridiculous. So we need to talk about all sources. Everything should be on the table. But let's make it safe.
If we take out natural gas and then
one of the
change
cleanest.
it's it's one of the cleanest for the environment, and then change it to electrical. So where do we get our electricity from?
There you go. And it's not necessarily better, right?
Yeah.
And it's got another layer of pollution issues. So let's not be drastic. Everything's on the table, but don't swing the pendulum too much one way or the other.
Cool. I got some more questions. If you got time, we got plenty of time. So access to elected it's important because it's so easy to get a hold of and they communicate with you. I'm not sure if you knew, but Mimi helped me get justice, by the way, for that.
Mimi helped you what?
Get justice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It was a federal case,
Wow.
and her office assisted in that. Anyway,
awesome.
So I don't want I don't know. I don't want to just hit somebody, but the last election we could talk about that was hitting Mimi on not doing town halls, and I had a very favorable opinion of her because of what she had done personally for my family, so I think it's really awesome you're willing to do this live stream town hall, even though usually we have a bigger turnout. To do it on a regular.
Okay, so we learned from this not to do it on a holiday weekend. Is that what you're saying?
The last one we got a bunch of questions. It was blowing up.
I know.
But people watch it in replay, hopefully. So it's awesome we're do these live town halls and take questions filtered. How often do you plan to do these types of forums after you get elected to Congress?
Wherever time permits. I think a lot of the struggles as elected officials have been time, but if you ask people in Yorba Linda, they would say I'm accessible. And I always make myself available because you don't learn, you can't help. Everything is about constituent services, right? Yeah. So constituent services could be through town halls, answering broad questions. Kind of town halls I see as one way of answering everybody's questions at the same time, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what we're kind of doing here.
Right? But constituent services could be one-on-one, okay. Right? So I'm open to all. I just want to make sure that people's needs are met. If I can help them, I'm going to definitely help them.
Let's skip the other ones.
Okay.
So I think I might have already asked this. Reminder, we're taking questions live. So you have a question for Peggy Huang, please type them out and click send. Also remember to share the broadcast. Even if you're watching this in replay, ask a question and tag her. She'll get back to you. So I have a question. What can we do as constituents to help you once you're elected? Because I know that's when the hard part starts, is after you get elected.
I think for constituents, and it's both ways, because I know a lot of constituents who reach out to their representative, elected officials, and get no response. And I think that's a failure of the office not setting up a good communication system. So I want to work on that. Is constituents will always be comments and questions are always welcome. If you don't get a response, that's going to be a problem. And even if it's not a response you like, we're going to give it because that's how you have dialogue. Not being afraid to answer questions. I'm transparent. Okay. I'm easygoing. I'm not afraid to answer questions. And if I don't know it, I'll go find someone to help you too.
Awesome. So I got a really vague question. I just kind of want a very vague one. And I'll put that, I wrote it the last part, but I'll put it up front. It's supposed to be vague.
Okay.
What is your overarching command philosophy for being in Congress? Feel free. It's supposed to be open-ended, vague question. Some people have long answers. Some people have short. Some people just say, treat others how you want to be treated. So what is your philosophy for leadership, command? It's a military term, but being in charge, what's your philosophy of leading a group of people? I mean, there's an old saying in the military, say, take care of your soldiers, they take care of you. So even if you're a rock and you're stupid, if you just take care of your human beings, they're going to make sure you're okay.
But those are the basic things. Isn't that has nothing to do with being an elected official in Congress, treating people with respect, being forthright, not being manipulative. I mean, those are the things that honest, integrity, ethical people. That's who we should be every single day. It has nothing tied to being an elected official. But if you want to say, how would I approach my term in Congress? I would go to, I want to make a difference, a positive difference or a positive impact in somebody's life. I want someone to say, yes, Peggy did something that helped me tremendously, that improved my life. That's what I wanted to do.
Can I add to your question with a little bit less vagueness? little less open-ended, but because I've heard from Democrats and Republicans, there are two different styles of being an elected official. There's I'm going to listen to what the voters say, and I'm going to do that. So I'm going to listen to my constituents, and I'm going to do that. And then there's the other style of, well, my constituents voted me in, and so I am going to make the decisions that my constituents want me to make. Which box would you put yourself in?
I'm like both.
Well, I mean, so like on
no, but I think I'm more on the side of the latter, the second box, that people elected me to make a decision, but they expect me to explain my decision, right? And in order to reach that decision, it requires a lot of listening to the constituents and then doing the necessary research. And that's what I have done as in my capacity as city council member, and all the elected, all the boards and agencies I represent. Is I listen to the constituents, I do my own research, I talk to experts in and outside of government in order to make that decision, and knowing that some people may not like that decision, but I'll explain it. I never had someone who said to me, well, Peggy, I have no idea why you voted a certain way. I've always had people who said to me, I disagree with your vote, but at least I know why. Yeah. And I wanted them to walk away knowing why. And if you disagree with me, I completely respect your opinion on that.
Awesome.
That's the best answer I've ever heard to that.
Oh, good.
I dug out honest, ethical, staff well, and you're not going to be combing the hair, are you?
Okay. Silly.
All right. Where are we at? Oh, over 30. Okay. I got a ton more questions. I'm glad we got all these questions. So one thing I think Democrats are starting to fail at is culture, because they're kind of being like the fun police and grumpy old people these days, yelling at everyone. You can't say this, you can't say that. And ever since 2016, my favorite comedians just aren't funny anymore to me. It's just, what is your opinion on culture, and then the chance that Republicans might take that back, and because they're the funny ones right now, like the memes you see going out and stuff. And
yeah. Well, what has always bothered me has been that we have become, I don't want to call it the Democrats, because some people, I see it even on the playground, is lack of respect for other people's opinions. If somebody disagree with us, instead of saying, okay, let's respectfully disagree, it is, okay, I'm going to fight you to death until you change your opinion because your opinion is wrong, right?
Especially on the internet.
Especially on the internet. Oh my goodness. And it's so irresponsible, I think. Mm-hmm. I think of it like a marriage. The best marital advice I ever received from my pastor was, don't spend your time trying to change your husband. Because if you don't want your husband to try to change you, why do you think it's okay for you to try to change your husband? Now, instead, have a respect for his opinion, who he is, because he was brought up a certain way. You can't change that. Can't change his circumstances. You cannot invalidate his whole entire life just because you disagree with them, right? So the question is, in this healthy environment relationship, is in that respect, how do you approach a problem, right? And so that's how I see the world too, is I appreciate your opinion. I respect it. I disagree. Now, the next question I ask is, hey, Demetria, where can we meet in the middle ground? And I think we need to start acting that way. And as leaders in our community, we need to show our constituents and the community how we can go about that. And so I think I try to do that in, for whatever board or agency, any public office I'm in, I try to show a respect for other people's opinion. And then I kind of go, well, I disagree with that, and this is my position. So where can we go to solve a problem and try to push toward a solution that not everybody's going to be happy with, but at least we did make an attempt. So
I think the ladies need to all listen into that marriage comments as well.
it's difficult. My husband will tell you that it was rocky trying to do that, but I thought it was the best advice, and we don't fight very often. My husband, I will tell you, is so much smarter than me and wiser than me, and so I respect his opinion tremendously.
Okay, well, I think there's some of these other questions I might have already asked them, and just correct me if. What's your plan to win over independents and Democrats that may have lost their faith in their party's politics or leftist politics?
For me, when I go out there and I'm talking to independents, actually, I talk to everybody. When I walk precincts, I don't even look at the party affiliation. I just knock on the door and I start talking to people, introducing myself. And it is about, being forthright and talking about the issues. And when I talk to them about issues, it turns out a lot of time we end up agreeing.
Awesome.
I think sometimes labels get in the way, right?
I think so.
So, and there's some I know I'll never win over. And I just said, hey, thanks for your opinion. When I'm elected, please don't be shy. Let's talk. Well, I want to listen.
Okay.
And I want your contribution.
Yeah, when I knocked doors, I knocked every door.
Every door.
In the city council race. You kind of already covered this, but we have to talk to you real quick again. You shared during your public speeches your personal challenges with the healthcare industry. Did you want to share us with that, or are you good with what you covered?
I think I've been very upfront and transparent about it. There's specific questions about it. Be happy to answer it. I would just reiterate this is that having a physician as a husband did not help me in any way.
Okay.
And so I understand what the challenges that everybody faced because I faced them. I'm very concerned about cost. And that's where we need to tackle.
Okay. Speaking of cost, so I got some other policy questions, you don't mind? Mm-hmm. So what's your take on taxes in California? Are they too high? Are they being wasted?
Well, I was reading this, interesting article in SACB. We're one of the top in terms of income taxes, the income tax rate. We're definitely the top state on sales tax. Mm-hmm. And those people who make over $250 make up over 50% of the general fund on taxes, right? And that 40% of the Californians don't pay taxes. So all in all to say is we pay a lot in taxes. The question is, how are we managing this here in California? And I think we already seen some comments from people here that I was looking at earlier is just the mismanagement. You take Los Angeles, for example, right? They've already spent over $250 million on homelessness, and they've only seen their homeless population grow by tenfold. The recent audit showcased the mismanagement. So I think this is why I push for something like OpenGov in my city. I wanted everyone to see where the financials are going.
Okay.
So I definitely think we pay too much in taxes and not enough benefits for our people.
Do you think some of those issues you just discussed are fueling the exodus out of California we keep hearing about?
Yes. I
okay.
already
yes.
lost like 3 friends.
Oh, wow.
And then, you look at Toyota, moving out of state, so many companies moving out of state. He said, hey, why are you moving? Oh, it's too high in taxes. Yep. We're punishing people for being job creators. Mm-hmm. We're punishing people who work hard. That isn't that a bizarre statement? I mean,
Yep. Oh, I pay a lot of
seriously.
taxes. Yeah, we pay a lot.
I mean, government, you are being punished for being a job creator because we don't like corporations. So, goodbye.
We were just balancing the family bills the other day, and I saw how much she made before taxes. Wife's a nurse. Yeah, I was like, oh my god. If I could
Right?
keep all that, I'd have a new car. Yeah.
I know. And you go to Florida or something, and they're
Gas.
like the dollar stretch.
Gas tax, all that.
Gas tax. Wow.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, gas tax. Oh,
So
another topic for another day.
we got an education question here.
Okay.
So what's your opinion on local education and the federal and state government involvement?
I've always been an advocate for local control over those issues. I believe in that. However, there is one stickler that has been kind of bothering me, is that you and I had this conversation before about integrated science.
It's the next question.
Oh, what?
That was my next
Oh,
question.
that was the next question.
But you answered the other one, which is what people I think want is they want the local control. Because I was about to ask it, what do you think of local control? And you answered it as I was writing it.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
reading minds.
Yeah, so a lot of people, they just want local control. Like Gavin Newsom signing bills saying when all the schools have to do this or that. Should that be done at the local school board level?
Yeah, it should be. I actually haven't figured out why we have a state superintendent.
So, although I think you guys know my stance on education being, local and focusing on the quality as opposed to just throwing money at the problem, but I'm going to put on my Democrat hat again, try to bring the other side's point of view, because I do view it as an issue that has merit. So the whole idea of kind of pushing that control up to the state level and past that is certain localities are going to be better than other localities, right?
Yep.
So like Newport Beach or Irvine may be better than Compton, right? So the whole idea, from what I understand, and maybe I'm wrong, is, okay, well, if you try to make it general, then, it'll bring up the quality of the lower education, and then, the places that are already doing well on a local level are going to still do well, so everybody does better. I'm not saying that's right, but that's the argument that I've heard for it.
Yep.
Well, then,
Well,
if you talk to some of the school districts, what they have said was under Governor Brown's whole Beverly Hills redistribution program was some of these school districts that had money, right? Let's take Beverly Hills, for example, since they call it the Beverly Hills plan. Before, expenditure was the same, right? And so Beverly Hills have more money because of taxes or whatever over there. So under Brown's plan was they get less. So what happened now is Compton is offering higher salary. So teachers from Beverly Hills went over to Compton, and now the students in this rich district is suffering because they now don't have the teachers they had before.
Are the students in Compton doing better?
And the thing is, they may not be doing better, right? Because this approach was too simplistic. The other thing that has happened also, and I see it in some of these school districts in Irvine and Tustin and Yorba Linda, Placentia can all attest to this. They do have significant amount of students who, and all you have to do is look at who are on free, breakfast and school lunch. They do have children from from poor communities. Well, they're going to these rich district. You pull resources out; those are the kids that are going to hurt, and that's what we're seeing in some of these, so-called rich. It's not this. I think children are not made equal, right? Communities are not made equal. They'll all come in with different issues. what has made a difference of maybe somebody in Beverly Hills versus Compton is maybe somebody, the family is able to pay for tutoring that maybe in Compton they're not able to. So it has nothing to do with expenditure. It has to do with perhaps the family. So then let's look at the resources, where we put the resources rather than, per capita spending. Sure.
Quick comment before we get to Yi Chan's question or his comment. To Dimitri's point, the point I was trying to make is they recently passed a law of what time kids go to school. I mean, what's next? Is the governor going to dictate homework policy? I mean, when the kids go from school, that should be like almost an individual school thing. Because some have programs in high schools. Some maybe have sports before school, things like that. It's kind of the dictator level to say everyone's going to do this at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's
what time does everyone go to school?
Yeah, that's not really a governor's call. He did it though.
What's
8:30.
It's like nobody comes to school before 8:30, so that's really going to mess up a lot of things across the state. And then I talked to the Irvine school board members, and they say like that's something that if we want to do it, that's their call, not way up high.
Right.
I mean, anyway, that's the argument.
Because they're claiming that children are not getting enough sleep. But what happened is when you have all these courses you have to take in the UC, we'll take the UC as an example, A through F requirements, right? And then you have their extracurricular activities because, we want kids to have a so-called balanced life, whatever, or interest. On top of that, when are they going to do homework, right? They're going to end up doing homework late at night. I don't see them going to bed early. I see them going to bed later and later.
Fortnite, skateboarding on our sidewalks.
And when do they get to, if you push time back, right? So it gets dark earlier. When do kids get to be kids? I mean, I encourage my kids to go out and play.
Well, it's just going to mess up. Different communities might have different factories in the area, what time the parents go to school. Really should be a local thing.
Yeah.
How's
this going to deal with childcare? I already feel bad for the working parents.
I'm a believer that everyone should always be a kid at heart.
So we got Yi Chan said, you saw the comparison video of how long it takes to do Common Core math and traditional math, plus making a full pot of coffee. I like my coffee. Thank you. That's Yi Chan's comment. So that leads right into my next question.
Okay.
What do you think of Common Core curriculum? And as you're laughing, I can tell you, I ran for school board, talked to thousands of people, and I not met one person that liked it.
I never met anybody on either side of the aisle, Democrats, Independents, or Republicans, like Common Core. We do not know who came up with this. Well, I kind of do. I heard Melinda Gates giving a interview on 60 Minutes talking about how great Common Core is and how she promoted it. But I don't know if she's really the person. It doesn't make sense. It really it doesn't even go with cognitive skills. Yep. So if you really understand how children develop, you would never do this to a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, the complexity of all those steps. And, I have heard from algebra teachers who said they're starting to see students who have go through Common Core math. They don't understand the fundamentals of math, such as 2 times 2 is 4, because nobody made them memorize the multiplication table. They're struggling with something simple like that.
I'm telling my wife, because my son has memorized the multiplication table and some of the problems he's supposed to estimate. And she's like, he already knows the answer. He doesn't need to estimate. Mm-hmm. He knows, he had memorized it already, like we all did. We were like, what, 3rd grade, 4th grade?
Yeah. And this, I don't know. I can go on, but I'm not a fan of it. And actually, my friend and I were talking about the Common Core English. We don't think that our kids are better writer. We actually think our kids are worse off now. Yeah.
So if you get elected, will you try to get rid of it?
I'd love to get rid of it.
Okay, cool. Campaign promise.
I would work hard. Because I personally hate it.
Okay, so awesome. So
I'm taking personal experience up there.
So that's the easy one. Yeah. Here's another easy one. Integrated science.
Oh, wait. I was just talking about that earlier.
Yeah. So what do you think of integrated science? And I already heard your opinion. I'm doing that for the audience. Okay.
Don't like it. Well, you know what? Integrated science, I have to say.
You do know people have been protesting it at a high school in Irvine?
You know that I was involved in that too, right?
Okay.
I was approached by a group of parents who said, "Hey, I heard you're like those community activists who walked around and get petitions and stuff like that. How do we get started?" And I said, "Okay, well, I did it the old-fashioned way, which was knocking on doors. Now we can do it online, so let's do it online." I call it integrated science great for people like me who didn't really like science and not excelled in it. And so, yeah, I get, a little bit of here and there because I knew I wasn't going into a science major. But for my daughter who wants to go into engineering, teaches nothing.
Can I
concerned
ask
about that.
a very ignorant question? Because I have little kids. What is integrated science curriculum?
That is, you learn a little bit of each science subject, but you don't get down to the fundamentals. It's just sort of in
High school curriculum?
This is high school.
High school.
So high school biology, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, because my daughter's school has a little bit of it, but they also, when they in AP Bio, it's really AP Biology, right? But in Irvine, when we were talking about Northwood, one was AP Bio was still integrated science. You only get an overview of what something in biology is. But you don't
AP Bio?
In AP Bio, but you don't learn really the mechanics and the fundamentals. So you're not really prepared in the subject matter. Let's take what would be a good one? Osmosis or something.
How long has integrated science curriculum been around?
It's fairly new.
3 years.
Fairly new because Irvine High School doesn't have it. And my kid went from one school to the other.
And Northwood is 100%.
Yep, and that's where they have the most
and that's where
anger.
the protest is.
There's the most anger.
Terrible.
I failed AP Bio in 9th grade, so I know a thing or two about AP Bio.
And it's difficult, but science is not something. America is not testing well in math and science. Okay, so to introduce what I call liberal science and math is really hurting our kids, not helping them. So I'm not a fan of it. I want traditional science.
Traditional science.
Another campaign promise: you'll get rid of integrated science. That's going to get you some voters, I think.
And then probably some haters too, but that's okay.
No. Actually, I've heard nobody for integrated science. I've heard not a literal one person for Common Core ever.
No, and you know what? I haven't met a teacher who supports Common Core or integrated science.
Yep.
I haven't.
Yeah. So cool. So you want?
I'm not sure who came up with this.
I don't know. So those are some softball questions I thought I'd throw out there.
Those were softball?
Sometimes you got to throw things out.
Well,
there.
it's
Oh, well, because you already knew my position.
I already knew. Yeah, I did know your position. I know I'm asking some questions I already know the answer to, but I know that some people might watch this in replay. So I had some other questions. I know that these are already listed on your website, but you could pull it up if you want for.
Yes.
Okay. I got some questions about some of the major issues. So I just wanted to ask some questions about,
Okay.
wrong page. Some issues on public public safety and national defense.
Yeah, public safety.
Did you want to?
Well, the thing is, it's been so frustrating as a prosecutor to find so many crimes that went from felony to misdemeanors. And basically, we're not putting people behind bars and punishing them for hurting others. Okay, so my biggest beef has been over this petty theft. I mean, thieves are smart. I mean, if you think, criminals are dumb, that's not true. They're smart. And so they're actually thinking like, oh, hey, this, iPhone is worth about $200 on the market. And that iWatch and this computer is $5,000. I'm not going to take that because that's going to put me as a felony. So I'm not going to do that. But this microphone at $250. Oh, these add together are $500. I'm good. I'm out of here.
They're doing some good math.
They're doing some good math. I'm not kidding you. They do. And they go into a store and they're shoplifting, right? Under $950. It is misdemeanor. They're not getting punished. They walk out and they said, too bad for you. Look at the economic loss. And what do they do? A lot of these thieves are actually using it to buy weapons, to buy, drugs, and it's actually fueling other criminal activities. Look, laws are blind, justice is blind. And so I think we need to go back to sensible criminal legislations. I know there's the State Prosecutors Association, the District Attorneys Association is supporting a proposition to bring back, to elevate them back to felonies. We need to do that. Bring back to above, below 950.
Appreciate that. Is that something you can do in Congress and influence the local area?
Yeah. And one of the things I want to do is to work with law enforcement and giving them the tools that they need. I know there are some bad apples up there. Okay, some bad cops up there. They did some really bad things. But that doesn't mean that all our men and women in uniform are bad, right? They're out there, and the way we've been treating them have been terrible, and we need to give them, and I think body cameras is one of the best thing, and I really want to make sure that they're equipped with body camera. It's for their safety, and it's also a great piece of evidence. And also, I think it'll keep them conscious and ethical, right? Because everything's caught on camera. But we need to get them the tools they need.
Awesome. Can you talk a little about jobs in the economy and your plan to help that out?
Well, I like what the president's doing for our economy. We have the lowest, unemployment rate in decades. You know better than I do. 40 years? 50 years? I mean, it's crazy. And it's across the board. We don't have workers to fill some of these jobs. And which is, what I was talking about earlier about vocational training, because we have jobs that require certain skills and we don't have people to fill it because we have not been emphasizing that vocational work. So I think for jobs and economy, that's where I want to focus on now is putting back into the system skills for jobs, connecting them.
I was going to ask you about education, but we kind of already covered that. Could you talk a little bit about student loans and your policy on that?
So I'm still paying off my student loans. I put myself through college and law school, so I know the struggles everybody goes through with student loans. So I thought of how I want to solve student loans to really, earlier I was talking about the lack of discretionary spending. So a lot of companies have pay out, commissions, bonuses, or they might set aside education funds. So when they provide that to the employee directly as a payment for to pay off their student loans, then the employee that income is not treated as a income for income tax purposes. Okay, because we want to help people. We want the private sector to be a partner in solving this debt crisis instead of the backs of the taxpayers. So when they do that, when the bonus or commission, whatever that is earned by the worker is used for paying off the student loans, there's no income tax on that. Okay, so that becomes tax-free income. And it's really, they didn't even getting any benefit of it. It's just paying off taxes, and there's no payroll tax. Okay, that's one. Number two is I want to bring it down to the prime rate. There's no reason for that really high interest rate that people are paying. Is right now it's like prime plus like 2-3 points for a lot of these student loans. We want people to have education and we want people to pay back their loans, but having it at such a high rate, which actually is the servicing, the interest rate is being paid to the bank for servicing. Well, the federal government is the one backing it, so let's reduce it down to prime, or prime maybe plus half a point just to pay the servicing agency for it, but let's not make it outrageous. And lastly, while the person is in school, let's make that interest free. there's no reason for the interest to pile up. That's where the debt balloon is. While they're in school, the interest rate piled up.
So I have a question to kind of add on, because I really like that plan, and I've heard you talk about it before. So what about the folks that got their degree in the humanities, or in English literature, and they're massively in debt, which a lot of folks are part of that trillion whatever of debt. Those people aren't getting bonuses.
They
right?
they may enter it, and unfortunately, they may not get that bonus. But hopefully, the other two components of this plan will help them, which is one, preventing the ballooning of the student loans, which is interest rate, right? So if it's interest free while you're in school, now this is the part I'm still working on, work in progress, is I don't want to see someone stay in school for the next 30 years, right? Yeah. Okay, and this perpetuation. So we might have to put some limit to that, of undergraduate degrees, or we can. I think this is where I'm more than welcome to other people's opinion to make this a good working plan. But hopefully these other two components will work, which is reducing the interest rate, and as well as making it interest free will help those in humanities. You may not get that, bonus or commission, but that's not necessarily. Also, you could potentially be working for a company, right? That, some companies set aside education fund for their workers to get advanced degrees, other certification. They can use that fund to also help those who are in humanities. But most importantly, we can make this into a private sector solution rather than what other proposals that are flying out there, which is, free tuition, loan forgiveness for everything, right? We have heard all that. And what happens is it's making all taxpayers pay for it. All taxpayers have to pay for it. And if you think about it, if you're paying taxes until you die, plus there's, then you actually be paying more in taxes than just paying off the loans yourself.
What do you think about the whole idea that a lot of folks, they make the decisions to go into a university, an expensive university program, to get a degree in baloney, or not, or in whatever, in something that they don't like doing, or something that's not going to be lucrative, or a dying field. They're making these decisions at 17, 18 years old, where they may not understand the gravity of that decision, but then there's the whole idea of, well, just get a loan and go to school, otherwise you're going to be a loser. That whole philosophy is just thrown onto these children, and an 18-year-old is still really a child. What can be done about better educating those children to make better decisions and stop that kind of predatory lending?
I completely agree with you, and that's a very difficult space to work in. I think one of the things we should do in the high school level is, how do we introduce some of these various jobs and industry to our kids, right? So, for example, the school that my daughter goes to, there's an academy inside the high school, all right, and so it specializes in technology. And so kids can find out whether they like it or not by participating in that. It's like, is this a path I want to go to? Another high school that's next to us, they specialize in business and culinary sciences. For them to explore, is this what I want to go into? The one I have a particular interest in is the one that had medical services, because now they're being exposed to it. And I've already met students who said, I know I don't want to be a doctor. I know I don't want to be a nurse, but wow, I didn't know I could be a hygienist. I don't need a college degree for that. Wow, I can go to how many years of, I think it's only a 1 year of training, then I can do this. That exposure, you just think about less time wasted in school, because now they know what they want to do, and less debt, that's what we want to do. And for some kids, if they choose the 4 years work, through the plan that I'm proposing, hopefully that'll bring down that cost. But the more we can expose in those settings, the more we can do for these kids.
Well, alrighty then.
All right. Well, I have more questions. What's the plan? What's the plan to reform immigration?
Oh my goodness, where do I begin? There's so many different types of visas we need to look at. Our immigration law has been based on exclusion rather inclusion, right? And I'm for border security. Okay, so let's just get it out there. Border security is absolutely necessary, right? I don't know any country that does not secure their borders, right? So
Why even have a country?
then why have a country? I mean, really. So I'm for border security. Number two, I want to work on different types of skill visas. So we have visas where, you have students who are here on student visa. They want to go into a job that maybe there are not other people can go into. So we should be able to fulfill those skill visa, the H-1B visa. The other one I'm really interested in working on, and it's besides seasonal agriculture, is what if a job, and I was having a conversation with ranchers, people who represent ranchers. Okay, so you need someone who have the skills to, herd the cows, and that's not seasonal, but they just want to be here in America for a job, but they want to go home. They are not interested in permanent residence. They're not interested in citizenship. They just want a job, make some money, and then when they're done, they want to go home. But they're not necessarily the agricultural seasonal job visas. So I want to work in those type of reform. We have a lot of people who want to come here for different reasons, but not necessarily for the purpose of getting citizenship. They just want to be here legally, and
And how does that tie into your work with fighting human trafficking? Because I understand you've met with foreign heads of state.
Yes, I have, and that is a different space in terms of immigration. We do need to work with other countries on immigration reform. And sex trafficking, human trafficking. One of the scary things that I have come across have been people being shipped across the ocean in cargo containers. So we have to do a better job in that. So there's a lot, but we need to start working on addressing these issues, shutting down the website, but we really need to get down to the nitty-gritty of these human trafficking and stop denying to ourselves that it only happens in certain places. It's happening all over the world.
Yep.
And there, what's really sad are the cases that I have heard where people were promised something like, oh, hey, I will help you get a student visa, and they become slaves in somebody's house.
That's horrible.
So sad.
Those are the saddest ones, and I've had a criminal case before that dealt with one of them. So I think those are the things that we need to address, and we need to work with other countries in order to stop the human trafficking.
I think I missed I had a bunch of questions about that. I think I missed it, but I know we're going over 2 hours. I'm not sure how much time you had.
I have to get going.
Okay, but I wanted to end on a happy note, not the sad note.
Yeah, I was getting sad.
That is a sad one.
What's your best day you've ever had, personally or professionally, you want to talk about?
Best day I ever had. I will tell you that. So many years ago, I was an attorney representing children in foster care, abused and neglected children. I had a kid who was a fire starter. And trying to put him in a home was very difficult because he starts fires. So I finally found him. I worked really hard with a social worker after many failed placements, found him a group home that would take him. And on a Saturday, I got a phone call from the group home administrator and say, you know what, we will keep him this weekend, but he needs to be out of here on Monday. We can't have him anymore. He's starting fires everywhere. I said, look, we're kind of running out of placement. So I went over there, spent entire Saturday with him, went back again on Sunday, called him every day to make sure he's not starting any fire, talked to him. I was available to this kid 24/7. Well, the best day is on the day of his court hearing. I stepped out of the elevator into the lobby, and I hear this. There's my lawyer, and this kid just ran across the lobby and gave me the biggest hug ever, and it was just the best thing. And getting the report from the administrator who told me that weekend that I spent with him, just talking to him, being there for him, stopped the fire starting behavior. He did great in placement, and we were able to reunify him with his parents within 8 months.
That's awesome.
And I will always remember that day because I never had a kid who just ran across the lobby to hug me that way. So it'll always stay with me.
Awesome.
I thought you were going to say that he became a blacksmith or something. You just redirected it.
No.
So we can.
And my kids are going to be so disappointed because I didn't say it was the day they were born. But
so we can end it on a good note there.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
let me shut everything down. Turn off the mics.
Thank you.